Hi, Honey Family. Welcome back. I've got a interesting collection of stories today. Well, I found them interesting, and I hope that you do as well. If you do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Now sit back and enjoy the show. Story 1. A Nurse's Tale. I'm a nurse, and I work at a small hospital. Myself and several of us at the hospital have experienced different things. I've been slapped on the back by something in one of my patient's rooms. The patient didn't do it. She was lying in her bed and wasn't near me. Then there was a male patient who called the nurse's station and asked who slapped him. We didn't see anyone enter his room or come out of his room. But what I'm about to tell you is something that happened to me that truly terrified me. It was 2:30 p.m. and I was passing meds to my patients. I had parked my med cart in front of this patient's room, and I noticed a slim young man who was dressed nicely, wearing a beige shirt, blue slacks, a brown belt, looking down on her. I couldn't see his face or his head. As I was preparing medication, I thought I would give them a little more time to visit. Well, I guess he saw me and decided to walk to the chair in the room. It was behind a curtain that gives privacy to the patients when the door is open. He sat down in it. I saw him walk, but I didn't hear any noise, no footsteps. The room was a little dark, but it had light coming in from the hall. One of the nurses that was working with me came to me and started talking. I told her not to talk too loud due to a family member in the room. So I took the patient's meds to the room. I knocked on the door and turned on the light. I looked to my right to where the person should be sitting in the chair, and the chair was empty. I looked around the patient's room for the visitor, and there was no one there. There was no way for this person to leave the room without me knowing it. The patient began calling out to Timmy. She has not done this before. After this, she wouldn't talk about who Timmy was or where he went to, and I know he didn't leave the room, so I guess he just vanished. Story 2. Nantucket. This story happened while my husband and I were on vacation in Nantucket. We were staying at the Sherborne. There was a little introduction to the inn in our room, which stated that there was a ghost in the inn. She was reported to appear from the waist up. It was said that she had beautiful red hair. My husband didn't believe in ghosts and just blew it off. The first night we slept there, I was so tired that, honestly, a nuclear blast wouldn't have woken me up. The next morning, my husband asked if I had seen the bright light in the room. Of course, I hadn't, because I'd slept like a rock. He didn't say too much more about it. The last night of our stay, we had packed all of our stuff. Our luggage consisted of 2 pieces, and they were standing right in front of the door to our room, next to the bed. At 2:30 a.m., I awoke to a loud bang. I looked over my husband towards the door, and my suitcases were rocking back and forth into each other. My husband woke up and watched for a few seconds, and then it stopped. We went right back to sleep and left the next morning without even mentioning it to our innkeeper. My husband believes in ghosts now. Story 3. Mr. Jones. After I got married, my wife and I bought a house. It wasn't an old house, only about 7 years old at the time. It was located in West Kentucky, and we bought it from an aging couple. She had terminal lung cancer and wanted to spend the last years of her life up north, close to her children and friends. The old man loved the house and the area. We only met him a couple times, but he told us, and he made it really clear, that he really hated to leave the place. They were both heavy smokers, and we had a lot of work ahead of us. For such a recently built home, paint, carpet, wallpaper, all of it had to be replaced due to the smoke smell and all that comes with heavy smokers. We spent the first year pouring our hearts into the home. My wife is always spooky and doesn't like being alone and won't answer the door if she's home alone. So I keep a handgun stored away and always check out the rooms and noises for her. It's become commonplace. Well, After 3 years of not ever having anything occur, other than maybe some neighbor cats making noises at night, I came home from work to an empty house. As I walked into the den, I definitely saw a man dressed in overalls walk into our bedroom. I got my revolver from its hiding spot, checked to make sure it was loaded, and I proceeded into the bedroom. When I arrived, I know there was no way that somebody could have got out of that room without passing me. I searched everywhere. Under the bed, out the windows. They were locked, and the screens were in place. In closets, nothing. I quickly chalked this up to my imagination, although I've never had it happen before, and that's really the last thing I was going to tell my skittish wife. So about a week or so later, I wake up in the middle of the night and see the same figure standing in the corner of my room. I didn't feel scared or threatened. I rubbed my eyes and he was still there. The corner was empty, but it was as if he was in front of a desk or dresser, doing something. I finally decided to wake my wife. She woke up groggy from sleep. He was gone. Of course, I didn't tell her what I'd seen, or we'd be moving out the next day. A couple weeks passed, and I was working out in the yard, and a neighbor that walks the subdivision regularly stopped to have a chat. He said, "Well, Mr. Jones finally passed away." And I said, "Well, who's Mr. Jones?" He said, "Well, he's the old guy that you bought your house from. You know, the one that was always wearing overalls every day of his life. You know, I talked to him just a couple months ago when his wife passed away and told him how nice you and your wife was fixing up this old house of theirs. She said that he missed it so bad, and now that his wife was gone, he wished more than anything that he could be back here. He loved this house." Well, I didn't tell him that I was seeing Mr. Jones come to make his last rounds. After this conversation, I never saw the overalled ghost of Mr. Jones again. I was a skeptic before, and sometimes I still find stories hard to believe. But this time, I saw this with my own eyes, and I'm glad that I was able to find an explanation to what was once unexplainable.